Hello, welcome to the table, week number 7. Hey, did you guys notice that 7 and we're doing the 7th week?
You
Right?
broke up.
Isn't
You kind of
oh,
froze for a second.
oh. So I was thinking how in our 7th week, and it's a 7 of Diamonds week. Like we're
Oh,
kind of
nice.
lined up in
Oh,
some way,
That's dope.
starting in that 8th grade. Like yeah, so I think that's really interesting. So yeah, happy to be here, everyone. Welcome to the Back to School series at the card table. And we are excited. We have a guest today who's here with us as well. And our opening conversation with ourselves was about this time of year, how you can't help but kind of get in gear this time of year, whether it's to harvest your garden or to prepare yourself for the next round of learning or wherever you're going to go into in the fall season. There's something that really activates it, like that chill at night, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's coming. I feel the changes. I needed my sweater this morning at the bus stop, that kind of stuff. So, been thinking about that. And I'm curious about how it affects you all, the sense of the seasons changing. Have you noticed those types of things?
Well, I'm in Florida, so it's not changing. It's still hot as an inferno
What a
out there.
perfect way for a jack of hearts to live, man.
But
And just
well,
like,
and it's funny though, we just actually I saw something that actually Florida, I think this weekend we're having an unusual cold front. So like at night it's supposed to get down to like the 70s, which is actually cool for here,
yeah.
right? At this time of year specifically. So but no, it's still hot. It's still, and the kids at school, they come, you pick them up, they all stink, they're all sweaty because it's, they've been playing outside and they get in the car, you're like, oh, all right, let's roll the window down. So yeah, but I do love, when it does get cooler here, yes, I do appreciate that a lot because it makes my air conditioning not run as much.
Well, Gina, I'm curious too because you just experienced a really important transition in that you brought your daughter to college
Yep.
first time. So tell us how did that go? Did you cry?
Oh my God. So did I cry?
I know. Of course she cried.
Did I cry? It's crazy when I pulled up. So she drove her car and I drove mine because she has her car up there, and I had all her stuff in my car. And so she's in front of me, I'm behind her, and we're literally just getting into the city of Jacksonville. And the song from the Manhattans, Shining Star, I used to sing that to her when she was a baby. And when I tell you that song came on as I am pulling into like where I'm in downtown, I was, it was rap. And so when we get to the auditorium, because she has like, we park, she bolts out of her car because we were kind of like pushing the time. So she didn't see me until I walked into the gym. And she's like, what's wrong with you? Have you been crying already? I'm like, yes. This song. And she's like, I can't, because so she couldn't look at me because she'll start, she would start to get emotional. So she is like, and then like a few minutes would pass and she looks over me. She's like, stop crying. I can't. And then I cried again as I left. When I left, I cried pretty much the whole way home. So yeah.
And that's interesting that she's receiving that as being the ace of spade, because aces are like ready to go forward. Like she's ready to be at school. She's ready to transition. And you're like doing the crying and she's just like, no, I'm going this way. Like, so that kind of dynamic between you, I bet was really interesting.
And like towards the end, like we got there about after 3:00, and we went and bought her like a mini fridge and freezer. I mean, the room is so small. There's a bunk bed, like that's it. It is like, ugh. But we had gone to the store, we bring him back and we're loading her up. And her dad and his friend were like, you need to leave. You can't stay here. I was like, I know. I'm trying. So yeah, it was hard. I've talked to her every day. She has FaceTime me every single day. So it's been nice to, and she'll be back next weekend because it'll be her sister's birthday. So she'll be home for that weekend. And then that's probably the last time she'll be home, because then practice, the season, it's wild for them. So I'll just go up and see her.
Nice.
But yeah, it's definitely and even when we come home, her car's not here, so it's just different getting used to it.
Mm-hmm. And those tears that come during those things, there's no on or off for those.
Yeah. No.
Like they're just coming. They're like the rain, they're like the release of your heart, right? Because so much is tied into loving our children, so much investment, so much reflection, so much time, and you're letting go of like their 1-year-old, their 5-year-old, their 10-year-old, there's 15-year-old, like you're letting go of all the different versions of them that mirrored you along the way. So I think those tears are one of the more natural things that happens to us.
Yeah. I had to find out her roommate's birthday. And so what's fascinating is her roommate is the 6 of clubs. The 6 of clubs transforms into the Ace of Spades. So, and her dorm room is 213, and my daughter was born on Friday the 13th. 13 is her jersey number, her basketball number. Now there's 2 of them in there. It was just, I was like, okay, God, thank you. Like, I feel much better now.
Here's where she goes. Here's where she goes.
Like all the signs, all the symbols. It's like, this is where she's supposed to be. Okay.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it does help. I was nosy. I was like, when's your birthday? So, and my daughter just rolled her eyes. I was like, I'm going to find out. So.
Nice.
Being a club and a spade is my second card. I'm not typically a crier.
Yeah.
And when I dropped off my son, it was actually at the airport because he went to college out of state, like far out of state. He went to Texas Tech. And I got there, and just as he was getting in the line, I just lost it.
It's like breaking water. I'm telling you, it's like a rebirth for everybody.
Sobbing like that kind of thing. And he was shocked. I don't think he's ever seen me cry like that before.
Yeah.
And as soon as he got there, he like called me right away, like, "Are you okay, Mom?" He was shocked.
And the first thing she asked me, that was the first thing she asked me, "You're gonna cry, aren't you?" I was like, "I already have."
Even talking about it makes me want to cry. Like, it's crazy.
I'm literally, my eyes are watering. So yeah.
So, and that's such an interesting thing, like, because the more we go to this idea and this feeling, it's such a shared feeling. And honestly, there's certain ones that I think in the classical dynamics we live in, there's a lot of shared feelings that we have. And this is one that I bet any mother or parent that's done the let go and grow has that tenderness. It says, man, you just never think it's going to feel so hard to let them go. But who knew you could get so close to something and then it had to go?
Mm-hmm. And what's crazy too is now my baby will be double digits on next Sunday, and I'm like, geez.
Well, you're doing a good job of growing your own life, though, Gina.
Oh my God,
using
it's
yourself.
a lot.
But I think about our guest, and maybe Donna will transfer over there, because for a teacher, that happens every year. I taught preschool for 5 years, and I absolutely loved that kids camp with those kids and those 3-year-olds. I tell you, I loved it so much. But boy, did I fall in love with some kids, and did they fall in love with me? And was it tender when it was time to say goodbye? And it was such a intimate, unique relationship, right? Because you actually spend more quality time with those kids in that school than I probably spent with my own kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was a presence that I brought to that job, and being with those kids, that especially the 3-year-olds, man, did I learn a lot with those 3-year-olds about how we think and what we do. Like, they're kind of what kicked my butt to go to school. I was like, man, they're so smart and we're not.
Right.
Like, they have something we don't. Like, we need to cultivate that innocence, because man, they really have a lot to bring to us when they feel safe to share their authentic selves. That's why I love Donna's title of her book, The Authentic, the way it promotes the authentic child. So before I pass it to you, Donna, I'll just say we're the Card Table. There's a website too, and it's just about learning about who you are in the cards and using these meaning makers to understand more about who we are and how we play together. So welcome, and Donna, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Croatia. So to start off our back to school series, we have a guest, and our topic today is going to be like just school preparation, getting your kids back to school. And so I invited a guest that I've actually known for about 30 years. Her name is Bridie. And I know Bridie in various kinds of capacities, in that not only did I teach with her, so I know her as a colleague, but we became some really close friends, and we've been friends all these years. So I know her in that capacity. But then she also taught my son. So I know her as my child's teacher. And I know what she's capable of what she can do with a teacher. My son's a 5 of heart. I've talked about that before. And hearts can tend to have like an artistic side. And she really brought that out of him. And I know not just through him, but also through other students that I've had that have worked with Bridie. She is just always positive, always looking at the best in children. She's inspiring. She is just so beautifully touched so many lives, and they've been better for it. So I'm really honored that she could join us today. So I'll start by letting her just kind of introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her.
That was very sweet, Donna. Thank you. My name is Bridie, and as Donna said, I remember the first day she walked into class or into my building. This beautiful, blonde, beautiful teacher from Texas. And here I was from Montana going, oh, great. Who is this lady? And I have to tell you, I literally went to my teammate and said, I can't find anything wrong with her. She's super smart. She's super funny. But even when a whole bunch of new teachers come together at the beginning of the year, and we all hate those introduction games that administration wants us to play. But I did meet Donna that way. And I also have been friends with her through ups and downs in our life. When she brought cardology into my life, it was such an eye-opener, not only as a friend and a mother, but I have found that I'm using it in classrooms when I have a student who's particularly challenging, or I'll go ask their birthday, and it gives me a little background even without knowing them. So anyways, I'm happy to be here to talk about getting started with school and some routines, and just sharing a little bit of information.
Yeah. So tell everyone about your card and how that fits you as a teacher.
Well, I'm a 3 of clubs, and my favorite color is green. I always wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be in shows, and it never happened for me. I got very close in a lot of auditions to being on TV or that, and it never happened. And yet my biggest acting role has been teaching for 35 years. And it's definitely given me an audience that I feel I'm in the right place. I love the fact that I was just talking with Groisha about the very beginning of a school year. Teachers, we get to start fresh. We get to act like everything's going to be great this year. It's going to be a fresh start, and go with that until the 3rd day of school, I'm thinking. But and we also have a culmination each year where we say we've done what we can. We've met these kids where we were available to them, and we've done what we can. In education, that gets harder and harder, but I haven't quit. And I know that as a teacher and a parent, even like Gina was saying something a little earlier, Donna and I used to save all of our great energy for teaching, and then we'd get home as parents and our kids would get the worst of us. And then anyway, so when we were sending them off to school, I felt like I didn't get enough time with them. I gave all my time to other children. But anyway, so It's a fun
That's
start.
beautiful, tender reflection, buddy. I so identify with that. I appreciate that a lot. And I'm watching my grandson go into kindergarten for the first time, and I really appreciated some of the things that the school's doing. One of which is they're actually coming to meet the families and getting a sense of where the kid comes from. And their first week was half days where they got like picked up by the bus to get used to the bus, but picked up by your parents. And I was thinking about the teachers, like you get a half a day with those kids, you get a sense of what's going on. And then the last day they had the lunch and they came home later on the bus themselves. And next week, like, so it's a gradual thing because there's so much change that happens in our wiring at that time, right? So to me, the slower we go, the better chance we have of staying authentic and staying clear. Because I know if I start to move from that impetus of like hurry, 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 or fear, 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 I'm not as clear. Like I feel more squirrely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I asked Brady to come up with some tips for parents of how to help their children prepare for back to school. So I'm going to let her talk about each tip. And then in between talking about the tips, we're going to kind of take a spin of looking at maybe some insights with specific cards. And see how.
Yeah, maybe we could do like parent, teacher, child, right? Because now this parent is going to be the main relationship, like a primary relationship for your child, right? And so it's going to reflect where the parent relationship is strong and where the parent relationship isn't. You know, like I remember Cole falling in love with a teacher, second or third grade. I can't remember her name, but she wore heels and he just thought she was the coolest looking lady. He just really liked her, you know? He goes, how come you never wear those heels, Mom? Women look really nice when they wear those. I love this teacher, the way she wears these shoes, second grade, whatever. Okay. And then I was trying to do something. He goes, you're really not very good at teaching things. You're not very patient like my teacher. I was like, yeah, well, that's why she's the teacher and I'm the mom. But thank you. Thanks for the reminder. But, and I felt gratitude for her. I might have felt a little bit mad at myself, but then I, pulled it up. I said, okay, well, I'm going to teach him about how to make a fire. I'm going to teach him about something else that I can be a teacher at, but I can't teach you how to do that because I never really wanted to.
Well, one thing that, like you say, the beginning of the year, and I think it's really important for parents, and I wish I could have talked to my younger self this way that I'm talking now, but as teachers, we all create something called like a class charter. And basically that is, okay, how do we play this game is how I introduce it. I never tell kids, these are my rules. I never call homework. I call it, okay, what's the game? What are we tackling? Let's do this. You want to start your class with a slate that says, okay, this is what we want. Okay, this is what we want. I want to feel safe. I want to feel prepared. I want to feel valued and joyful. And then it's important that I remind them as the teacher, I do too. I want to feel safe. I want to feel valued. So if we want to have these emotions and expectations, how do we play the game? Oh, we participate in class discussions. We keep an open mind. We have a safe body. For parents, I would do a class charter at home that says, how do we help grow our family? I'm not going to say you're in charge of these chores. I'm going to say, we want to feel safe here. So let's make sure we're picking up stuff. Teaching is about this gimmick of giving them the idea that it is exciting to learn something new. It's not what you have to do. So transitions and expectations, I wouldn't allow phones or tablets at bed. Reading or quiet and yes, it's okay to go to bed when you're not tired. That's okay. We all have to. Getting up routines, anything that makes it, and unfortunately, a lot of the parents we're seeing, especially in our Title I schools, do not have a life that is structured for those kids. And it's not at their own fault. Some of them are working nights and days and that. So when kids come to school, they do want structure. They may act like they don't, but they really do.
So I love how you called it a game, because we're all about the card game. Right?
And Donna knows I have two very different card children. One of my kids will always say, "How do I win?" And my other one will say, "How do I play?"
Mm.
That's two very different kids, you know, and yet
Are they like even numbers and odd numbers?
yes. So, anyways, that's fun.
Yeah. And it's so, yeah, that's a good point, Gracia, about how this type of transition will be depending on a child's card being just even or odd. So for instance, fours, any child that's born a four birth card, they have such a need for safety and stability, routine, structure, like that's their need. And so if you're a parent of a child that is a four, and other even cards too, they need that structure big time. And then the odd cards, they need it too, but they also need a little bit of freedom. You know, like my son being a 5, he was all about like, yeah, let's get out there and explore. And going back to school was fun for him because he could meet new people. So
Let's see. I think one thing that Donna even brought up for me was that you co-create this. You give them some ownership in your charter or whatever you want to call it. I don't put this up on the first day and say, this is what we want. I put it up as a blank sheet and I say, okay, what do we agree to when we come into music? Okay, and we list it off. I think at home with children, if they feel like they have, you know, part ownership in that, and I'm not saying that the kids should get to dictate what you do. Just some ownership in that is good, especially when you're working with sports and homework and family life, and also letting kids play.
for sure. So you guys, what kind of cards do you think would appreciate that, like that type of co-creation?
I mean, I think the cards that would appreciate her energy the most would be those the 5s, you know, the 7s, because it's kind of like there's a freedom. It's not like rigid. It's not like this is what we have to do. Like if we come in and, you know, I can choose. Like to me, it feels more like Montessori, where you're able to choose what work you want to do. You're going to go to the level that you want to go, and that's why sometimes that works for some people. And you know, and I think it's good to be able to know all the kids that you have in your room's card. Like that would be like a 1-up on everything, because you understand the energy that you're teaching, you know, what that may work. And that's one thing I can appreciate about a teacher who can look at it from different perspectives, because one child may not learn the same way as another one, you know what I mean? And so as long as you have those tools to say, okay, you know, Johnny needs to sit here and read, and Beth needs to go out and act out the scene for her to understand it, right? So and I think with the 3s, you probably are a really fun teacher, because you understand the diversity, the being able to kind of try this, try that, what fits, what sticks, what doesn't. You're not stuck to just things having to be this way. And then I feel like, again, your students would probably have more fun in that class, because today it was this and tomorrow it's going to be something even different. And so it kind of keeps them guessing and stimulated. And again, I know for me, I learned the best. I remember we had a history teacher. He made us act out the Boston Tea Party. He made us act out Paul Revere. If not, you would have caught me sleep on my desk, because that stuff was boring. But if we're actually playing these roles and parts, I can tell you everything about that stuff now, because it was fun and it was creative, and it wasn't just this you talking to me and me having to listen to you. That just wasn't for me. So
Donna and I were talking about something that I try, you know, especially as a music teacher, I see every kid in the building.
Yeah.
But we were talking about, I try to help parents understand, because I think a lot of parents don't, that we really are trying to reach all of these different types of children. And you're not always going to get the teacher you like. You're not always going to have what you consider a great teacher, but that's a good lesson in life for kids, is listen, you'll have a lot of different kinds of bosses. So how do you work well? If I were a parent, I would want to find out the birthday of my teacher. You know,
I do. I do.
Of course you do,
I
Dina.
could get myself in a little trouble with some of them. So I stay back. But you know what I've used with Donna is when I have a student that I'm not quite reaching to, I love to see, I'll ask Donna, tell me more about like a 6 of spades, you know, or whatever. And it really does help. So I'm hoping that, you know, if you get some routine, you set up your own, like, what's our goals? Also is you don't have to be completely successful every single day. What's one thing you did today? I don't ask my kids when they come into class, how was your day? They'll all go, fine. I'll ask, has someone been kind to you today? What did that feel like? What's something you're proud of today? And I will use a number system in class. Like every number 6 gets to answer this question for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because then it's that old theory of they all pay attention if they have to say something, but they know they don't all get to share. And I really do try to make eye contact with every single child, every class, which is hard sometimes.
Yeah. I really appreciate what you guys are bringing in around the value of a shared understanding for people, right? Because I found that even with the 3-year-olds, like once we all kind of negotiated how it was going to be and what felt fair and everybody understood the way it was going to be there. But then those kids 8 to 11, it was more fun, right? Because they wanted to see why and push and understand. So your contract, if you will, was challenged on a regular basis, but that was fine because it helped them learn critical thinking and helped them see the ripples of their actions, right? But those contracts of that shared space, that's part of what cultivates if you're going to grow or not, right? And how you're going to use the energy, because you're going to get challenged by the different parts. And I appreciate hearing you say the value of true connection. I work with residential girls currently, and I'm challenged to try to make a genuine, like real timely connection with all of them. There's like over 30 of them, you know, and I don't see them all. They're just on campus, but some I do see. And I see what happens from the ones I see. And I see the others like flowers I'm not admiring. It feels like sometimes I'm like, oh, I got to make time to go to those flowers too. You know, whether we like it or not, being reflected by a big person who looks at you and thinks that you're interesting, it does something for a young seed.
Especially those younger kids. I had a little student who was a crier. Everything about it would make her upset and cry. And so I finally just said, okay, I really want to hear you. I can't hear you. Can you use your words? I can't hear you. Oh, I really want to know what you're telling me, even though she's screaming, crying. Can you use a word? And pretty soon as she could get a word out, and then she was breathing, and then she was okay. And I said, and then just back up. Just acknowledge that is what she's feeling. The hard thing with teachers is that in the meantime, you now have 27 kids behind you running around, but it's important.
Because basically that energy, because I find in working in all these groups and hospitals over the years and schools and such, it becomes an energetic form, like an emotional form, like the room, like the girls say they're holding a set of emotions together, like they're in a shared emotional experience. And if somebody starts to pull up and blow, you know what I mean? It's like everyone else gets steady, or somebody goes in and gives presents, and then we like come back into why we're here and what we're doing. Because even as a restaurant person, you get somebody at a certain mood or a certain part of hangry of the night, and you'd be like, okay, we need to study this one because, you know, things are out of balance for the whole house. You know, and I think that's part of the awareness that it is going to happen, and how are we going to respond in a way that the shared understanding is more important than winning.
Yes.
You know, I got a thing about this, like everybody trying to win. I'm all about everybody winning and recognizing that this divine expression of your authenticity, that's the liberation you want. Like that's the win for everybody.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes about education is, I think it was from Aristotle, where he said, like, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And so that's kind of what we're talking about here, right? Like when you had to take the time to stop to deal with the emotions, that's so important, because without that connection and that heart connection, the kids aren't going to learn as well. So
Yeah.
If they don't get validated that you are hearing what they say, they're done with you. So, but it is difficult. That's part of the things with teaching nowadays, especially after COVID, with all the kids not knowing how to regulate their emotions as well. But boy, that's when I went and looked up the birthday of that one little boy, and I said, okay. And just a little angry little soul he was. But anyways.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a real thing. That's a real thing. I can definitely identify. I didn't know their cards then, but I went back and looked at lots because I happen to be a birthday remember kind of person. And it was fascinating to see what some of those spades were like in my life. There was just a real like way that me and the spades had real authority bounces. Like we were doing the polish on authority, man. We were in the grid for authority, me and them spades, man. Like
Yeah. Bridie's got a spade boy, so she knows what you're talking about.
no offense, spade boy.
Oh yeah.
No, many years of that, and it's come around now. And what's funny is he's old enough, my son who's 30 now, that Donna is talking about, and is a spade. And we tell him now, listen, bud, you're the karma card. You're going to get caught at everything you do. So have at it. You can learn from this. Or you can be disappointed, and he's really come around. He always asks me about Donna now because he wants to know he's getting good karma.
That's great.
You're not dying to know what his card is?
My son is a 6 of spades.
Oh, wow. I'm working with one right now, and it is definitely one of my most challenging relationships that I've had.
Yeah.
And the twins' best friend is one, but I had a different position with him because he looked up to me and I wasn't like his authority, so we had a different kind of, closeness that we got. But the one I'm working with, she's all about her authority and her way and how she sees it. And her reactions are just righteous. Like, this is a little person telling me, I've already spoken to you about that. Let's not do that again. Oof. But that's her game. I'm not going to squash that and be like, I heard you and I did what I did for this reason. And thank you, but you're not going to control me, but I hear your suggestions.
Yes.
So authority and power in the classroom is like, we could probably do a whole show on that, right? But one thing that I always found too in my teaching is when I did have kings like you, Croatia, because Croatia's a king of diamond and a king of heart, is that I had to give them some authority in some way, some job, some role, some respect in order to get that back from them. Leadership position, even something as simple as like classroom jobs. And kings, from particularly the females, they didn't like to be told what to do. So learning to navigate that was interesting as a teacher because, kids are taught, you're the child, I'm the adult, I'm the authority, you're not. And they don't quite see it that way when they're a king.
I don't know. Maybe I'll say what it was. When I was growing, I liked responsibility, like you said. I wanted to feel important, you know what I mean? Attention, whatever you want to call it, right? I wanted that. And I would want to be as burdenless as possible. So I'd say, tell me what it is that you want. How do you want me to do it? And what do you need me to do? And I would then try to take the responsibility of making sure it got done. So I was all about service to whoever that person was in the relationships with everybody in the room. And I probably was bossy at times, but I mostly was just eager to make sure everything was safe and that I was deployed. Do you know what I mean? Because I find with not being deployed, I get annoyed. I get more frustrated. I feel like I'm not vacuuming and I'm supposed to vacuum or something, He's like, what are you going to do with this? It's here. Just tell me something to do with it, because I don't know what else I'll do if you don't give me a good job,
Right.
So, but I can appreciate even the ones, but they're definitely rather aloof and they're kind of hard to connect to emotionally, though. They're all about the task because I have one of those too in my practice. I have two of them. And I'm young girls and I'm like, oh boy, mirror, mirror on the block. You don't want to give up your emotions for much.
Right. So
And
true.
And they don't always have compassion for the other's emotions because they don't show their emotions. Like I always say, part of what made me more aware of the fact how powerful emotions are is reflecting others because I could actually feel more about my feelings through feeling other people's feelings.
Yeah, and vulnerability. The kings didn't like to show their vulnerability.
Mm-mm.
So like if like I was a science teacher, if science wasn't their thing, they didn't like to be put on the spot for their fund of knowledge in that area because it made them look weak. So I was real careful to navigate that with my kings.
Well, for all the kings, I say thank you.
Brady, what else you got for us? Any other tips?
When I think about school and I think about the life process I'm always an advocate about bullying and about inclusion, diversity, equity, and the real world. And so little times at school, I try to give some specific, let me give you an example. I give kids something to say when someone has to apologize. And I tell them, for instance, you don't want to say, that's okay. If someone kicks you and you say, that's okay, then they can kick you again. You say, thank you for apologizing. Leave it like that. And I said, when someone bullies you and says something mean, and I'll give you a specific, this middle school boy called this girl a fat cow. And she was crying, and I brought him over and I said, I'm going to give you something to say when they say that. And it's just, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not how I own it. It's not how everybody, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I made this girl practice a couple times and she was like, but when you see him in the hall or something, and she says, I told my mom even, I'm sorry you feel that way. I said, oh, no, it's not for your mom.
Nice.
But if you give them something specific, and I try to make, because this bullying thing has gotten incredibly worse through these social media, things like this. And so anyways, I try always to give examples in class of even times I've made mistake. And where I did something wrong, and then look at me like, oh my gosh. And that's part of that vulnerability thing. I always want to say, if I've learned from it, then it's a lesson. If I don't learn from something, I can garbage it. But if I learn from it, it's a lesson. And that's, something I can take with me.
Nice.
Yeah,
I had a student once who was an 8 of spade. So not only was she a powerful spade, but she was an 8, which is just a really powerful card. And she knew she had a lot of power. And one day she came into the classroom a little bit late. And that particular day, which I think was a Friday, I used to let the students sit wherever they wanted to. It was free. You didn't have to sit in my pre-assigned seating chart. It was Friday. You could pick to sit with your friends. And they loved that. They loved that little bit of freedom to have on a Friday. And she got in late, and her friends already were at a 4-group table that was filled. So I watched her look at each person at that table and then pick the person who she perceived was the weakest. And she just looked at them and said, move. With that 8 of spade power. And that girl moved. And so later, I pulled that girl out of the class because, of course, you don't invite a power struggle with an 8 of spade. You don't call them out in front of their friends. I knew better. So I took her out in the hallway when the students were busy working on something. And the way that I framed it was that I was like, do you know how lucky you are to have such a commanding power? Like, just your presence without even talking is such a gift. So I'm wondering why you would use it in such a negative way when you can do so much good in the world with having that power. And she's like, huh? And so, I took her through what I observed, and she was like, and she owned up to it. And I mean, that was kind of a really like changing kind of experience for her. She was. What about you, Gina? What do you think of those 8s?
My little one has an 8 of hearts and has had an 8, like, school is small, so they, even though they all kind of come up together, and so there's one that's an 8 of hearts, and as soon as I found out her card, I was like, oh, because she has that, like, that force within her. She knows how to turn on, you could see her like smile and turn on that charm, and then next thing you know, she's like, and I'm like, ooh, so I'll do field trips with them. I love going on the field trips with them because it's like I get to play and have fun. And I had her, and her mom and I were really cool because her mom's a Jack too, a Jack of Diamonds. So we just the whole time. And when I found out her birthday, I was like, oh yeah, and you could see like she has this like, you can't mess with me type attitude, like, you know what I mean? And so it's funny because my little one will come home and she'll talk about this person. And I'm like, find out their birthday. And then I help her kind of, oh, that one likes the attention, don't feed into it, or, they're just doing. And I said, especially when she gets frustrated with them, I just try to teach her, like, it's okay. That's just their energy, and you don't have to entertain it. You don't have to participate with it. If it's bothering you or frustrating you, go do something else, so that's kind of how I address it with her. She's in 5th grade now, and so there is a lot of that girl, the girls and the bickering and the competitiveness that can come with that energy. So I've just tried to help her navigate the different energies that she is dealing with within the class and within her friend group. And it's interesting because she's always listening too about the cards, so she'll know these cards better than most by the time she's a teenager.
That's kind of fun to think that this language is going to become more like, every day, just the culture. That's kind of fun to think, like my kids are joking now, but they're basically like, what's the card, Mom? We know you're going to say it. But I'm like, you want to know. So it's like, it makes a lot of sense, and so I think it's kind of cool to think of it because really you just really can depersonalize so much with these cards. I think that's the greatest liberation that comes from them. That's the emotional sovereignty piece of the cards that I'm like, oh, okay. That's just an 8, and I have to be creative, and how I respond is my gift, and otherwise I'm in it.
Yeah. And as a teacher, we're always looking for like the assets in each child. And I feel like even though every card has its own deficits, that same attribute can be flipped and turned into an attribute, into an asset. They just need someone to recognize it and be able to maybe give them examples or to verbalize it for them,
Yeah, giving language to those awkward feelings is like a liberating thing for people. And I would say to the parents, and it's a pull up for everybody, but we're the teachers. Parents are teachers and children are teachers. It's the same relationship. You know what I mean? Like learning the assets of the people around you, understanding how the resources work together. Like that's the way a family comes into the alchemy of being able to be a sweet spot, a spot you want to go, a spot that brings you fresh and you come out clean, because everybody loves you just like you are, and you can talk about it and hold out or bring in whatever it is to be you. So the people there are like, oh, okay. That's how you're going to be. And then you need this and then you'll do that. Okay. So do that and then do this. That's okay. But communicate, right? Like understand the person. And sometimes when the dominance idea or like you're the child or you'll do as I say kind of energy lingers in the houses, it's, you're like, how dare someone talk to me like that? And I almost start laughing when I hear people say that. I'm like, yeah, right. Must be how you talk, because if they're talking like that, they start somewhere. You know what I mean? So see monkey do. So let's get true, you know? So yeah, it's a real thing. So how about we do the card spread for teacher, parent, and child?
Okay.
Sound
This will
like
be
a
fun.
good setup.
Yeah. So this part of the show we call the weekly family card pull, in which I take a real deck of cards and I shuffle them and I invite the energy and wisdom of the cards to tell us what we need to learn. I'm going to pull out 3 cards. One will represent the birth card of the mother, the second, the birth card of the father, and the third, the birth card of the child. And then we'll talk about personality traits, and particularly in the context of what we're talking about today with back to school.
What if we do a teacher and parent instead of the mother, father? What if we do a teacher, a parent, and the kid?
Love that. Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so the teacher, oh, this is funny. The teacher is a king of club, which I actually call the professor card. So it is a teacher kind of an energy. That works. And then the parent, a king of heart.
I can see that.
And then the child, a 7 of heart. So that 7 of heart child, when I look at that, like that's a very sensitive child. That is also a child that I describe as being like a people pleaser. So this is a child who will want to please the teacher and want the teacher to like them. This is a child who will probably attract a lot of friends because they're friendly, sociable, likable. But this is not a child that is going to invite conflict. So when I've had children like this with this card, and there's some kind of a conflict, that child probably will never admit that another kid did something wrong. Like you have to separate that child from the others because they're not going to rat their friends out. They just don't. So, and this teacher, as a king of club, I see as being like very organized, a systems thinker, able to, juggle a lot within the classroom, has natural leadership abilities, being a king, is probably an excellent communicator, definitely has probably just a very authoritarian kind of energy about them that the kids would likely respect, just that kind of an energy. I like the parent being a king of heart because the king of heart would kind of understand the emotions of that 7 of heart child. And so that would be kind of like a nice thing because 7 of hearts can get their feelings hurt. And if that 7 of heart had like maybe a spade parent or a club parent, they might just kind of be like, get over it, kid. Whereas the king of heart kind of a parent would be more like, understanding and wanting to deal with the emotions, kind of like Bridie was saying with that child that was crying, like would want to attend to the emotions first. What do the rest of you guys think about this?
I think that's spot on. I think that was exactly as I would have seen it. King of clubs as a teacher is very, lined up. Like you said, they wouldn't take any BS. There wouldn't be any out of order in that classroom. You know what I mean? Like they would be very much like, this is what we're going to do. But I also believe that they would be able to deliver the information in a way that people understand and just being able to kind of, they're researchers, you know what I mean? So they'll have everything that those kids will need to kind of succeed. Because I think there's this element of success that comes with that card. So they'll be able to give what the kids need for the success. For sure.
I'm thinking about how the 7 of hearts is really, really emotional and how that is really annoying to the king. Right? That's not necessarily the king of clubs' favorite arena, is to be in your big emotions with you. So that need for approval that's going to come up from that 7 of hearts because they want to be validated for their sensitivity all the time, right? And because they are very attuned to relationships. Like they're the kid that'll know what's going on with the kid behind the board over there. Like they're the ones that are paying attention to everything that's going on, right? So they could be a great resource to the King of Clubs with the compassion that they would need to be able to communicate in the way that the Seven of Hearts can communicate, which can be a little dramatic. No offense, but it can come through a little dramatic. You know, my sister's a Seven of Hearts and my best friend, so I have them pretty tight in my circle. And I also say that it would be a strength to the process for the King of Hearts parent and King of Clubs to really have shared vision and stay consistent. Because once that victim energy of not being picked or liked as much as you think, because your insecurities are looking for a story to grow, you might be able to split them, right? And you wouldn't want to split them, right? Because then the team wouldn't feel strong and the emotions wouldn't learn to be regulated. Because any of us heart cards, regulating our emotions is our job.
Yeah, those sevens are interesting because they, no matter the suit, they're all somewhat like empaths in a way. Like they like soak in a lot of the energy that's around them. And so as a teacher too, I think it would be important to consider like who you put them around. You know, like if you are creating the seating charts, like what do you do, Bridie, if you know you have a kid that's like really hypersensitive for seating and assign group work or whatever?
And what's really hard about what you just explained is when you break into groups and they'll all go with their friends or whatever, you know you have this sensitive person and you know they're going to get left out of a group. I tend to do numbers and only let them choose groups. Otherwise, I do feel like you end up with the two most sensitive that won't do anything without a group to go into. I also try the opposite, which is to get the class used to that. Instead of having the student, you know, the focus of having kids get, you know, work with this student more, have the class get used to that. You will have people that are emotional. Don't know. It's nothing you need to make fun of. It's nothing you need to talk about. He cries all the time. You know what? That's just not under his control right now. So let's just go on without it as the class instead of focusing just on the one person. Sometimes it works, sometimes not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it's a shared emotional space, right? So that person's ability to regulate in the big emotions of everybody coming together is different. So in a way, tuning into the way that we want to help everybody feel safe and comfortable is actually going to make a better space for everybody. Otherwise, split and collusions and those little clicks that happen in life and those little collusions we make, they're just ways to vibrate in fragments. I mean, come on. We're all in it. We're all each other. That you're me, I'm you. Like that's that. And we're just living the one we live.
And when I ask him what is your overall goal, isn't it to be happy? Okay, so do you want to be right? Do you want to make a point? Do you want to get mad? Or do you want to be happy? Because if you want to be happy, then you're going to have to let people in this room be who they are. You get to be who you are, and we're all going to follow these guidelines, which makes a happier environment. Sometimes kids don't understand about a happy environment. So I will even tell them, you're not making me feel valued right now. When you say, shut up to my face. I'm sorry, I don't feel valued. So anyways, but like you say, the whole environment of the room, empathy towards what we all bring to the table, but we do want to be successful and happy.
So what do you guys think about the king dynamics between like the parent and the teacher? Like if these two were to meet at like parent-teacher conferences, like.
Well, you know, the hard card's going to be sensitive to any rejection too, right? Because they want their kid to be okay. They know they're sensitive, right? Like, you know, you're walking with a crutch when you're wearing your heart like that. I mean, like, I'd be at those things back to school nights, and if they told me something about the boys, like, I would tear up. I wasn't ever one that got mad, but I was learning about their whole day. Like, I literally went there realizing that I was with the people who were their true teachers, and I was getting to only have 15 minutes with them. Like, I'd almost become emotional talking about it.
That's why every single parent teacher conference that I ever had, I made sure that especially because middle school, you had like slots of like 20 minutes per group, and then you're on to the next group. I would make sure the very first thing that came out of my mouth was something that I valued, appreciated, loved, adored, whatever about their child. Because I never knew the birthday or the card of the parent. And if they were a heart and were sensitive to that, a lot of parents do take it very personally. And I've seen other teachers do it the opposite way, where they have trouble with the kid, and so the first thing that they talk about are the behavior issues. And I think that's totally the wrong approach, because you just shut people down as a parent, because their children are a reflection of them. And if you have a heart parent listening to that, they're going to shut down.
Yeah, and then you're going to get defensive and start to like go after their authority and go after the system or silly stuff like that, right? Because your heart gets shut down. Yeah, I mean, the twins being the Queen of Hearts that they were, there's no one in the school that didn't love them. So the teachers were gushing right there with me. They'd be crying back. Like, teachers came and said, can we have dinner at your house and see them again? Like, they were going to miss them. They're like, they honor community. They bring an energy to our school that like changes the school. Like, that's the vibe that they were, right? So I'd be like, go boys, like, yeah, you were getting C's, and yeah, you were, going to do stupid stuff with your friends, but you knew the relationships of the people in the school. Like they said, they're in no cliques. They get along with everybody in the entire school. So I didn't even care what they were doing in math when they told me that. I was like, great, okay, I'm glad the rest is working. But that's my nature, right? Because I wanted to know that they were valuing what we value.
And value them holistically. School isn't just academics.
No, it's a culture, it's a society in its own way.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I loved my heart kids because they were like the glue, right? Like they kept the relationships, the rapport going. I could always count on them for that and for being supportive of each other. So I loved my heart kids. One of my closest friends is a Queen of Hearts, so love that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wonderful. So then, yeah, I guess that's the whole thing, is thinking about the fact that every relationship you have when your kids go back to school, whether it's with their teacher, their bus driver, the people at the bus, whoever it is that you're going to connect to, it's going to affect them, right? If you're in a good relationship with the people that they're around, it helps them soften into those relationships too. So I hear how busy we are. I get it. But I also know that being present in those dynamics help your kids know that you're all part of the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting, when my oldest, who's the ace of spades, was in school. I mean, there's never been a problem with her with learning. I mean, they recognized that she could do math at a level that most kids her age could not, and they moved her to a higher math class, she mathed out of school her junior year. She didn't have a math class to take her senior year. She finished them all. So, but there was one time when we had just moved down to Florida, so we were at a new school, and she was in the after school program, and I picked her up, and she had been written up, and I'm like this is just something that had never, she's never been in trouble. And this is like first grade, so she only had a few years in school, so it wasn't a lot, but she's never acted out. And I hear the story, her and this little boy, they were playing tag, and he tagged her, she tagged him, and I guess he got really mad and frustrated with her, and so he charged at her. And I used to train in martial arts, and she used to come and sit, and she took classes as well. And so she saw him charging at her, and so she took him, grabbed him, kneed him, and threw him to the ground. I was like, oh. But so when I show up, she's hysterical, and she's more worried about how I'm going to respond. And so I hear the teacher's side, I listen to her, and when she tells me what happened, I'm like, okay, I'm not mad. Like, I wasn't upset at all. You did what you know to do. You were protecting yourself. I mean, the way this kid was like, huh? Like her whole demeanor was like, and I think in that moment, my daughter knew I have your back. They know as long as you don't lie to me, like I'm going to go hardcore for you. Right. And don't lie. Tell me the truth. And that's what she knew. That's what she told me, the truth. And with that, I was like, you're not in trouble. Like, and I think in that moment, I think at that point, my daughter realized, oh, wow, like my mom is going to always be in my corner. Like she's always going to believe me as long as I tell her the truth, you know? And so that was very pivotal for her and I, because again, she was really just defending herself. He was charging at her to like tackle her. And she was like, no, and literally just took a knee and threw him to the ground. They both got written up. But because she had got physical, and I understood, but I also told them she's not in trouble with me, because in my opinion, she defended herself and needed to do what she needed to do. So yeah, that was a very pivotal moment for us, for her.
Sounds like that verifies two things, right? When you can trust them and when you can forgive natural things, and that monkey see, monkey do, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Listen, when I used to train, there was a little room that the kids could go in and watch TV, and we're in there, and I mean, I did Krav Maga, which is very physical. Like it is, you're beating the crap out of people. It was fun. And so we hear this commotion, and I'm running into the room, and my daughter has a chair. She's gonna swing on this kid, and I was like, what are you doing? And I pull her out, I take her outside, and she tells me what is going on, and I understand her frustration. And I had to realize, like, you can't even really be mad at the kid. She literally watches you throw grown-ass men around on this mat. She watches you beat the crap out of people. So you really can't be mad that she was doing exactly what she comes 5 days a week and watches you do. So I had to explain
it's like watching
to her,
Planet of the Apes or something, Gina.
Right. I had to explain to her, like, I understand. And why she was mad and frustrated was very validated, but you can't pick up the chair and like swing it on someone. We have to work on that. It's not what we're going to do.
You can't call people names either, even if your family does. So Bridie, I don't want to take more of your time. You know, we're going to start to wrap up, but we're so grateful you were here.
Thank you so much.
I love the charter thing. I'd love to even have a copy of that. Nice. Oh yeah, see if it'll happen. Do it into the. Oh, it doesn't work on here like it does the Zooms, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you do this. It. Woo.
It did it the first time when she did it. I was like, what?
All right. We got one hit of hearts. We'll be happy.
But it was very fun. Thank you all for sharing with me too. That's awfully fun. And I appreciate your talents and your gifts. Donna is amazing to me. She's done more in her life that I can imagine. I mean, all the hats she wears. She's very good at what she does.
Yeah, we've been blessed by her presence at this table. So we see that. And thanks for keeping a good friendship so she could stay true, right? It's those mirrors that do that for us. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, dear.
Bye.
All right, ladies. Well, there we go. So it seems like we did a good show on Back to School. We touched a lot of stuff. Anything that you guys wanted to include that we didn't talk about today?
Nope. You know, I think it's, if you are a parent and you're watching, you know, when your kid comes home, you know, say, hey, find out their birthday. Find out your child's teacher's birthday. It helps you to understand the dynamic of who is teaching your child, how your child may respond. You know, that's what's the beautiful thing about the cards, and just knowing, having this information. It only makes you better. It makes you be able to parent better. It helps the teacher. Even if you like take the cards out of it, you know, when you do your parent teacher conference, you know your kid. And sometimes if the teacher is struggling, you could say, well, maybe they, you know, help, like they need more help with this. Or, you know, with my Ace of Clubs, she's real shy. She does not speak up. And I told them, I said, sometimes if she doesn't know something, she's not going to say it. You really kind of have to stay with her, and because she's going to be she's very reserved. She will not talk. If she's in a place that she will not talk. But when she's comfortable, it's another story. But when she's in settings like she wouldn't even know she's there, right? And so I've had to be like, she's real sensitive, she's really shy, you wouldn't even know, like, so just kind of just check in with her to make sure she's understanding and comprehending what we're teaching, because a lot of times, sometimes these classes are getting bigger. They got 20 some kids in there. You don't want your kid to get lost in the shuffle. So I very much am like, when they ask, the little questionnaire, what are some things you can tell me about your kid? I'm very much like, she loves to learn. She's very stimulated. She may ask you lots of questions, but at the same time, she's real soft spoken. She's real sensitive. She can hold that. So kind of, and that just help them better, and I think that's one of the best things that you can, bring forth. And having that relationship with the teacher is always good too, because that's who your child is spending a lot of time with.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I primarily taught middle school. So when kids
God
are
bless
that
you.
age, yeah, I know, right? I did for 20 years of my 37 career teaching. They don't like to be interrogated, particularly certain kids. And so you can find out a lot about who your kid's hanging out with just by knowing their card. You don't have to ask the questions. You can already get a lot of information just by understanding your child's friends' cards. So I would encourage you to do so. And I just want to add that we are going to be continuing this back to school series over the next 4 weeks. So tune in next week.
And if you have questions as a teacher or a family member, they're welcome. And check out the website. There's a whole bunch there to kind of give you a classroom to this. We put some real time into making the information really accessible, like crazy cheap, and just like learn who you are. It's intended to be like a self-awareness portal to help us become more alive inside. So when you're not wearing that you messed up and you get a sense of who you are and why you're here, it might help you steer the whole thing more clear. So we invite you to go to the website, because it does have an invitation there and the free stuff you can get too, to just tell you more about cardology. Because for some of you, you might be like, what are they talking about? It made sense, but how does it work? Well, we did our best to help you know how it works. So check it out. And otherwise, this has been great. I appreciated the guest. I've invited a couple other teachers. Rashad says he'll join us one of these times that it falls into his flow. So I'm going to see if I can't stay on that and get that to happen. And otherwise, I thought the conversation was great. I appreciate how much authentic stuff comes up in this, because everybody's living it or has lived it, right? Nice. Well, thank you both. And remember, everybody, your job is to keep all the cards on the table. No under the table business. It just makes you sad or mad and gross things we don't want any more of. So keep everything above board, keep it clear, and I will see you next Friday.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.